Let me introduce you. This is the woman who has been living with me since you went back to your parents' house.
He laughed, holding the shoulder of the woman who was clinging to him, completely naked. While I was at my parents' house for the birth of our twins, my husband had moved his mistress into our home. The mistress acted as if she had always lived there.
It's your fault for getting pregnant. You don't do any housework, and you won't even be with me at night. There's no point in staying married.
My husband had insisted that pregnancy wasn't an illness when my morning sickness was severe. He despised me for becoming a housewife, calling me useless. His cold attitude intimidated me, and he shouted to justify himself. Even after giving birth, his attitude didn't change. Our newborn started crying, frightened by his loud voice.
I'll divorce you, so take those noisy brats and get out.
I held my children close and prepared to leave, as he commanded. It might seem unreasonable, but I had a powerful ally who could overturn this situation. If his secret was revealed, my husband's triumphant face would twist in an instant. My powerful ally was my dad.
The one who'll be in trouble after the divorce is you.
My dad said in a low voice, breaking his silence.
What are you talking about? This has nothing to do with you. You should leave too.
My husband retorted, staring directly at him with a solemn air.
You don't know anything, do you?
Immediately, my dad's words caused my husband and his mistress to turn pale. My name is Jane. I'll be 60 this year. I have twin children, a boy named Ethan and a girl named Claire. I named them with the hope that they would grow up to be straight and kind-hearted, inspired by sound and light. Their dad's name is Michael. We met when I was in college, and he was 3 years ahead of me. Michael had lost his parents early and supported himself through scholarships and part-time jobs. He was an excellent student and very handsome, but he kept a low profile to avoid attention from women at the college. Despite his young age and hardships, he was determined to carve out his own path. And I admired and had special feelings for him. My persistent efforts paid off, and we started dating when I was a sophomore and he was in graduate school. Our relationship was smooth even after Michael graduated and started working. He landed a job at a well-known financial company, both domestically and internationally. Michael, who is active as a salesperson at a company generally considered difficult to get a job at, had a higher annual income compared to others of his generation, and was often the object of envy. Working at a major corporation was a source of pride for Michael. However, after a while his personality began to change. In college, he lived quietly to avoid standing out, but after starting his job, he began to spend money extravagantly, and his behavior became flashier. Since it's a sales position, I guess he can't do anything that seems cheap. I sometimes found his actions suspicious, but at the time, I was blinded by my admiration for my talented boyfriend. After I graduated, I started working as a secretary at a real estate company. 2 years later, I found out I was pregnant. Michael acknowledged the pregnancy, and we soon got married. I thought I was at the peak of happiness, but not everything was rosy. At 2 months pregnant, I was hit with severe morning sickness. It was so bad that I could hardly get out of bed and had to take frequent leave from work. At that time, maternity leave policies were not as developed as they are now, and many women resigned when they got married or had children. I didn't want to cause any more trouble for my company.
I'll focus solely on protecting my unborn child now.
With that thought, I decided to quit my job and spend the rest of my pregnancy quietly. Michael didn't seem to think well of this decision. When he came home from work, he sighed at the sight of me lying in bed.
Are you slacking off again? The room's a mess, and there's no dinner. You've been like this since you got pregnant.
I was throwing up all day today, too. I can't even keep water down. I'm worried if my twin babies are growing healthily every day.
Pregnancy isn't an illness, right? Yet you quit your job. I don't accept that. You can't even do one house chore for me, working late every night. You're useless.
That's not.
At that time, Michael truly despised me for becoming a housewife. He seemed to think that my morning sickness was just an excuse to slack off on household chores. His cold demeanor and condescending gaze intimidated me. And no matter how difficult things were for me, I had no choice but to comply with his demands. My pregnancy with twins made my belly grow heavier quickly, and even after passing the stable period, my health did not improve. Michael firmly believed in traditional gender roles. Men work, women manage the home. No matter how much I asked for help, he had no intention of assisting with the housework. The combination of poor health and stress eventually led to a diagnosis of threatened premature labor. After discussing with my doctor, I decided to return early to my parents' home in New York, where they would take care of me.
I can get away from Michael.
I felt relieved at the thought. But my relief was short-lived as Michael called the landline at my parents' house.
Leaving the house is so irresponsible. Without you, I can't get proper meals or do laundry. Don't abandon your duties and rely on your parents.
Don't be unreasonable. I need to prepare for the birth.
Are you defying me? You're being selfish when I'm the one supporting you. Don't bother coming back.
Michael hung up the phone. Terrified by his intimidating tone, I sat down right there in the hallway by the phone. Why did he only ever think about himself? Why didn't he care about me or our children? Where did the Michael I once respected go? I was so confused.
Jane, what's wrong?
My dad noticed something was off and gently helped me up. My dad, always kind and gentle, placed a hand on my shoulder, helping me stand. Overwhelmed by his warmth, I broke down in tears. My dad called my mom, and they both took the time to talk with me. Slowly, I shared everything that had happened. The emotional abuse I received from Michael during my pregnancy. If it continues after the birth, it might harm not only me but also my children. I'm scared and live in fear every day. I admitted to my parents that I was considering our divorce. And I ended by saying, I'm sorry for being such a disappointment. My parents listened quietly until I had calmed down, and then my dad spoke.
If you want a divorce, that's fine. This is your home too, and you can always come back. There's no need to apologize. We'd rather hear words of gratitude. It makes your mom and me feel better.
My dad smiled, lightening the mood, and my mom smiled shyly beside him. Their smiles lifted a weight off my shoulders, and for the first time, I felt genuinely reassured. I wanted to show my children the same love my parents showed me. I wanted to protect them and hear them say, "Thank you." That would make me truly happy. For the first time since becoming pregnant, I felt optimistic. Michael didn't contact me again after that. I couldn't return home, so I had no idea what kind of life he was leading. and I didn't have the courage to reach out to him. A few months later, I gave birth to healthy twins a little earlier than expected. A boy named Ethan and a girl named Claire. These were the names I had thought of early in my pregnancy. When I mentioned them to Michael, he had said, "It's up to you," showing no interest. So I named them on my own. My parents loved the names and called their grandchildren affectionately. My dad called Michael to inform him of the birth, but he declined to visit, claiming he was too busy with work. As a first-time mother, taking care of 2 babies at once was overwhelming. Without my parents' support, I couldn't have managed on my own. Even a month after the birth, Michael hadn't come to see his children. I planned to return home after the first month, and my dad had informed Michael of this, but Michael never came to pick us up. So my dad drove me, Ethan, and Claire to our house where Michael was. I felt a bit scared to see Michael again after so long, but I thought that with my dad there, he wouldn't treat me coldly. Maybe seeing the children would bring out his paternal side. With these faint hopes, I stood at the front door with Claire in my arms while my dad held Ethan. Nervously, I opened the door and was shocked by what I saw. There, next to Michael's leather shoes, was a pair of high heels. Shoes that I absolutely didn't wear during my pregnancy. I knew those shoes weren't mine. I was stunned. This meant Michael was inside with another woman. Unable to comprehend the situation, I staggered into the houses.
Wait, Jane.
My dad seemed to sense something and tried to stop me as I was drawn into the house, but it was too late. When I opened the living room door, Michael was sitting close to a young woman, likely the owner of the high heels. Clothes were scattered around them.
Jane!
The naked couple in front of me were shocked by my appearance. They hurriedly gathered their clothes to cover themselves, looking pathetic. To shield Claire from the sight, I covered her eyes with her swaddle.
Michael, what is this? Have you been cheating me?
As I demanded an explanation, my dad slowly walked up behind me, holding Ethan. Michael and his lover were initially startled, but soon looked at each other and laughed defiantly.
Let me introduce you. This is Kate, my colleague. She's been living here with me since you left for your parents' house.
Kate, the young woman, looked at me with her pretty eyes. This was the apartment Michael had moved into after getting his jobs, and I started living here after we got married. Kate acted as if she had always lived here. Despite this being our first meeting, she spoke to me sarcastically.
Sorry, but Michael told me how you never do anything around the house. That's why we ended up like this. But it's your fault for neglecting such a wonderful man just because you were pregnant.
I never wanted to get married in the first place. I wanted to focus on my career and have more fun. It's your fault for getting pregnant. You stopped doing housework and wouldn't even be with me at night. What's the point of staying married?
Michael justified himself angrily, his loud voice causing Ethan and Claire to start crying. Irritated, Michael covered his ears and glared at us.
Oh, this is why I hate kids. I'll divorce you, so take those noisy brats and get out.
Yeah, this is our home now.
Kate added, clinging to Michael with a smug look. Anyone would see them as a handsome couple in love, a scene like a painting, and it made tears well up in my eyes.
You should be holding your newborn children, not her.
But I couldn't find the words to express my anger. My weakened postnatal mental state and the shock of the situation clouded my thinking. Holding the crying Claire tightly, I turned my back on Michael to leave, as he demanded.
Dad, let's go.
As I called out to my dad and headed for the door.
Wait. The one who'll be in trouble after the divorce is you, Michael.
My dad, who had been silent until now, began to speak in a low voice. His tone was so unlike his usual gentle manner. He stared straight at Michael with an air of authority.
What are you talking about? This is none of your business. Just leave with Jane.
You two work at the same company, right?
Yes, we work at a prestigious firm. You'd never get a job there, old man.
So, it's an office affair. Is that right?
My dad calmly confirmed with Michael, unaffected by Kate's insults. Michael, irritated by my dad's attitude, snapped.
What the hell is your problem? If you've got something to say, just spit it out.
You don't know anything, do you? It's a good thing I brought my business cards today.
My dad handed Ethan to me and pulled a business card from his pocket. Reluctantly handed to Michael. Michael's face turned pale as he read it.
You are a corporate attorney?
Yes. I'm the legal advisor for several major firms in New York, including the MU Group, where you work.
That's impossible.
It's true. I've been with the MU Group for years, and I also helped you get that job.
What? What do you mean?
Everyone was stunned by my dad's revelation. When Michael was job hunting, my family and he had dinner together, and he had talked about his dream of working at the MU Group.
I liked Michael. He had big dreams and worked hard for them. Even if he wasn't dating Jane, I wanted him to succeed, so I put in a good word for him with the MU Group's hiring team.
I didn't know.
I respected your pride, so I kept it a secret. But it seems I was mistaken.
What do you mean?
An office affair goes against the clean, proper image the MU Group strives for. If it gets out, it could harm the company's reputation and client trust. I've also been concerned about your treatment of my daughter, so I've had you investigated. Here are the findings.
My dad pulled out photos and documents from his briefcase, detailing Michael's misdeeds. I had no idea my dad had been doing this.
What is this?
It seems you've been doing whatever you wanted at the office, hitting younger employees and touching female colleagues. You managed to hide it well, but one brave employee came forward and your misconduct was exposed.
This can't be happening.
Your punishment has already been discussed internally. The notice will come soon, but you'll likely be fired.
No way.
And earlier, you told my daughter to leave this house. If anyone should leave, it's you two. This apartment belongs to me.
What?
When you started living here, the previous owner wanted to sell due to old age, so I bought it. Notices were sent to all tenants, but it seems you didn't see it. I don't want to resort to drastic measures, but if you continue to mistreat my daughter and occupy this place, I will issue an eviction order.
My dad revealed one shocking fact after another. Michael was speechless, unable to comprehend what was happening. Kate clung to Michael, seeking help. But no one could stop my dad now.
You dare to smear my name and mistreat my beloved daughter and newborn grandchildren. I won't forgive you. Prepare yourself.
Damn it.
Michael, I'm divorcing you. My dad and I will ensure you pay alimony and child support. Kate, you'll be paying alimony too.
No.
I spat out those words, shielding my babies from Michael as I left. I saw him on his knees, shaking his head in frustration. Thus, my divorce from Michael was finalized. Facing my dad's wrath, Michael was fired from his job, evicted from the apartment, and left struggling to survive. According to my dad, Kate, who was only interested in Michael's income, abandoned him when he lost everything. The alimony was paid into my account by Kate's parents, who were furious with her and disowned her. Kate was also fired from her jobs and was struggling financially, but her family refused to help when she sought their assistance. Desperate for money, Kate ended up working in a nightclub. After the divorce, I stayed at my parents' house with my children. Although I considered becoming independent, my parents suggested I stay with them to help raise the twins. Watching Ethan and Claire sleep peacefully beside me, I thanked my dad. Dad, thank you so much for helping me back then.
It's all right. Hearing your gratitude makes me feel like I protected you well.
Is that so?
You'll understand one day.
At the time, I didn't fully grasp my dad's words. He emphasized gratitude over apology. Ethan and Claire grew up to follow their kind grandfather's teachings, expressing thanks without hesitation. Nearly 20 years later, my dad passed away. He was diagnosed with cancer 2 years prior, but it was already too late. He lived with a smile until his end. During his funeral, I continuously thanked him in my heart. Around the same time, Michael stopped paying child support. He was supposed to pay until the children graduated college, but the payments gradually ceased until they stopped entirely, as if timed with my dad's passing. With no contact, I have no idea where he is or what he's doing now. I lost contact with Michael and, needing to care for my elderly mom, couldn't search for him. Fortunately, my dad left a substantial inheritance, enabling Ethan and Claire to pursue their dreams in college. 10 years after Michael disappeared, Ethan and Claire turned 30. With my mom gone and the children moved out, I sold the family home and began living alone. One warm day in May, the doorbell rang. It was Ethan. What brings you here, Ethan? Are you off work today?
Yeah, it's my day off. I brought your favorite cake. Let's eat together.
That's a rare treat. Thank you. Come on in. I invited Ethan inside and began preparing tea. After graduating from college, Ethan became a successful surgeon at a large hospital in New York. When he learned my dad had terminal cancer, he chose to become a doctor to help as many people as possible. I worried about his lack of days off and his health, but he found great fulfillment in dedicating his life to his patients. I was proud of my son.
By the way, something interesting happened recently.
As I looked at the box of cakes, deciding which to eat, Ethan sipped his tea and began his story. What he shared was shocking. Michael, my ex-husband, had been admitted to Ethan's hospital. Seeing the name on the medical chart, Ethan couldn't believe it, but it was indeed Michael, who had been missing for nearly 10 years. Michael entered the examination room with a woman about Ethan's age and was shocked to see Ethan sitting there.
Why are you here?
Well, I'm assigned to be your surgeon.
You've got to be kidding.
Before the child support stopped, Michael had occasional visits with his children. Recognizing Ethan's face and the distinctive mole under his eye, Michael realized the doctor was his son. He suddenly became fearful and began pleading with the nearby nurse.
Please, Transfer me, or get me a different doctor. He'll kill me.
What's wrong with you?
The woman accompanying Michael, apparently his new wife, looked confused. Michael clung to her, loudly confessing his past deeds.
I abandoned him. I neglected him and his mom to have my affair. I ran away without paying child support after my scary father-in-law died. He must hate me, right?
Do I hate you? Yes, I do.
I knew it. You're going to botch the surgery on purpose for revenge. Please, don't kill me. I'll repay the unpaid child support with interest somehow.
In a complete panic, Michael revealed everything without being asked. His new wife, unaware of his past, was initially stunned by his outburst, but soon left, disgusted. Michael was then escorted out by the nurse. The commotion was loud enough to be heard outside the examination room, attracting the attention of other patients. That's not a funny story. I was stunned, placing my hand on my forehead. I never imagined such a coincidence. I felt sorry for Ethan, having been dragged into this mess by my ex-husband's foolishness.
Even if I hated him, I intended to do my job properly. But because of the commotion, I had to be removed from the case.
Of course.
There's more to the story. Do you want to hear it?
Suddenly, Claire, my daughter, interrupted our conversation. Apparently, I forgot to lock the door after Ethan arrived, and Claire scolded me for it.
What do you mean, more to the story?
His new wife came to me for a divorce consultation. She wants a lot of alimony.
Claire had become a lawyer. She dreamed of being like her grandfather and passed the bar exam while still in college. Now, she worked at a law firm near my houses, preparing to start her own practice. Recently, Michael's new wife, unaware of who Claire was, came to her for advice after discovering her husband's previous marriage. It was an unbelievable coincidence for the second time.
When she told me her husband deceived her and I asked for his name, I couldn't believe it. I connected the dots after hearing Ethan's hospital story.
That's unfortunate. By now, the man must have realized his mistakes, don't you think?
The man refers to Michael. It's clear from the way they speak about him that neither Ethan nor Claire has forgiven him enough to call him father after he abandoned us. As Claire moved the cakes Ethan brought onto plates, she answered Ethan's question with an exasperated tone.
Apparently, he hasn't learned his lesson at all. I've seen through my work that people who cheat tend to do it repeatedly. So, I recommended a detective agency to his new wife, and they found out he was involved with other women too.
What a scumbag.
Since he's hopeless, I handed the case over to a senior colleague who specializes in divorce. I have almost no memories of him doing anything fatherly, so I don't feel sorry for him at all.
I agree. I never felt sad about not having a dad. I had mom, and our grandparents were always kind to us.
Ethan and Claire laughed as they spoke. If my dad hadn't stood up to Michael and his mistress that day, I might have ended up raising my children in a terrible environment. I'm deeply grateful to my parents for all the love they gave to my grandchildren. At the same time, I often feel that my children grew up well not because of my efforts. I sometimes worry if I did enough for them as their mom.
By the way, Claire, what happened with that?
It should be arriving soon.
Just as Claire glanced at the wall clock, the doorbell rang again. As I started to get up, Ethan stopped me, and Claire went to the door. Ethan smiled at me, amused by my curiosity. When Claire returned, she was holding a bouquet of red carnations. Ethan and Claire looked at each other and then spoke in unison like the twins they are. Today is a day to thank Mom. A few months later, probably still shaken by his encounter with Ethan, Michael transferred the overdue child support into my account in a lump sum without any word. As Ethan had told him, he likely borrowed money to do so. Michael's surgery was successful, but his behavior made him an outcast in the hospital until he was discharged. Ethan commented, "I've never had a patient like that before," clearly troubled by the situation. After his discharge, Michael faced even more hardships. His new wife, furious at being deceived and learning about his affairs, demanded a large alimony. With Claire handling the case, Michael couldn't escape and had to borrow money again to pay up. Desperate, Michael tried to move in with one of his former lovers, but she wanted nothing to do with his troubles and disappeared. Having lost everything, all Michael was left with was a large debt. I'm sure he will live a lonely old life afterwards. It's his own fate, and it's none of my business. Years passed, and both Ethan and Claire met wonderful partners and got married. They had adorable children who occasionally visited me. Surrounded by my loving family, I lived a happy and grateful life in my old age.